We're beginning a new year, and a couple little changes I just want to tell you about. We're going to start with Bill McGinnis. Bill is taking on a new title. Doesn't get any more money or, any less work, but we are switching his title. He is now officially Minister to Families, and we'll be putting an added emphasis on all of our families that have children and youth. I guess everybody from somewhere in the 50s on down, he's going to give a special emphasis to those individuals and those families and help us out in that area. I want to remind you that, when folks come to Ridgedale, I always send them a letter and I say basically there are three things we want you to do, and I'm going to add a fourth today. So as we begin the new year, I want to remind you as a member of Ridgedale Baptist Church or as a regular attender of Ridgedale Baptist Church, here's what we expect of all of our people. And maybe I have no right to expect this, but if I had the right, this is what your pastor would expect, that you would spend a minimum of 1 hour in a small group Bible study each week. 1 hour, whether you choose Sunday school, Wednesday night, or Thursday morning, or whatever, but 1 hour of Bible study. That you spend 1 hour in worship. That means coming to church at least once a week. One Sunday, just always being in worship on Sunday morning, and 1 hour in ministry to other people. Getting involved in some ministry. It can be in this church, it can be outside the church, but every one of us ought to give back 1 hour a week. Now, that's not a whole lot to ask for from anybody. And if each one of us can give those 3 hours to God, I think God will richly bless our lives. Fourth thing I want to add is God expects all of us to tithe. Now, I know as we just voted on our budget, there was a lot of discussion about budget because we made some adjustments and cuts here and there and everything, and nobody was totally pleased with it. But the solution is to tithe. If every member of our church tithed, we would quadruple the budget. So, folks, the ball's in your court. I'm doing my part. I'm tithing, and the Lord is blessing, and I feel good about that. I do want to thank you for the wonderful Christmas Eve offering that you gave for benevolence. Somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000, and we'll have the final count this week. But that was a whole lot of money to go out to help other people. So I commend you and express my deepest gratitude to you. Today's sermon starts the series from the book of Deuteronomy. And I chose the title, Battle of the Gods, because we are in a warfare. We are right in the midst of things that are going on. Christmas Eve, somebody decided that they would have a party here at Ridgedale. Not in the church, but on the parking lot, Christmas Eve day. It was raining, remember that? Someone brought their Jeep by and drove across the property and through the detention pond and everything. And so Bill Lowry called me and said, "Hey, Brother Bill, you need to come and check this out." So I went out, and sure enough, there was mud all over the parking lot, and the curbs have black marks and everything. So Bill and I, we had a little discussion who got to be Sherlock Holmes and who had to be Dr. Watson, but we were going to investigate. So we followed the trail. It's real easy to follow a mud trail, We just followed the trail from over here in the parking lot to a local business, and there was a Jeep sitting there and just dripping with mud. I mean, the water was still pouring off of the Jeep, the mud dripping, and it just made a square around the Jeep where it had dripped off. So Bill said, "What do we do?" And I said, "Well, let's go inside and talk to them." So we went inside, and Bill and I both had noted the license plate number so that we could confront the perpetrator of the crime. And we put on our investigative voices and said, we have a problem. And we began to explain the problem, and then we explained it to another person. And they said, "Well, what's give me the license plate number." And Bill and I looked at each other, and neither one of us could remember it. So we aren't going to pass the detective course, but we did say, "Well, the Jeep's sitting there in your parking lot." And we need to keep good relationships between your business and ours. And I came back to the office to continue to study on this particular sermon. And the phone rang, and I'll call the guy Ted. He said, Bill, this is Ted. I'm sorry. I don't know what in the world I was thinking of. I've been to Iraq, just got home, stressed out, was going to work, saw the mud, and thought, hey, this would be a lot of fun. What can I do to make it right? Now, I've never seen Ted, don't really know what his name is. But you know what I told him? The day before this incident, I had preached a sermon at Josephine Hageman's funeral. And as part of that funeral service, I said, all God wants is for us to take responsibility for our sin, and He will take care of our sin. So that was a test the day after. You see, we spend so much effort trying to take care of sin, trying to rise above the sin, trying to defeat the sin of our own strength, trying to overcome the sin that has become ingrained in our lives, trying to hide the sin and pretend that it's not there, trying to minimize or justify the sin. And God said, you don't have to do any of that. Take responsibility for your sin, and I will take care of your sin. Now, why do we do those crazy things like what this young man did when we know beforehand that it's a crazy thing to do? How many times have we asked ourselves, why would I do that? The answer is because we are in a battle between opposing spiritual forces. There's good and there's evil. There's light and there's darkness. There's God and there's Satan. And this battle is going to go on for as long as you and I live. With the last breath you breathe, the battle will still be underway. Now, legally, technically, you belong to God, so there should not be a battle. You belong to God because God created you. You are His. You are created in God's image. But Satan knows that all he has to do is to get you to renounce God's ownership. And if you will renounce God's ownership, then you're on Satan's side. And that happens a lot. Maybe we don't see it happening that way, but whenever we deny the lordship of Jesus Christ, as it relates to our time, our ministry, our finances, our attitude, whenever we deny the lordship of Jesus Christ, we have basically denied His ownership. Now, I'm not worried about the outcome of the battle. I know who's going to win. We saw that in our study of Revelation. We're sure that God is going to come out on top. But the real problem that we face is going to be the damage that's done. The issue isn't victory. The issue is casualties. How many people will die in the meantime? How many homes will be destroyed? How many churches divided? How many people messed up? What can and should we as Christians be doing to prevent ourselves and others from becoming casualties in this war? Now think of it as the war in Iraq or Afghanistan. There's no major head-to-head, all-out battle, as some of you folks remember from World War I or World War II, where you literally had armies of nations clashing with each other. but rather this is one person and a small group. Ask me, I don't know much about politics. I know absolutely nothing about military strength or power or techniques. But I do believe that's what is happening in Afghanistan and Iraq is part of Satan's design. I think there is a tremendous force of evil at work. But much closer to home, I know that Satan is doing in my own private life what he is doing in the battlefield across the ocean.